Hey guys, how's it going? So, if you haven't seen in the news, uh, another DFW legal case enraptured the nation all over the Facebook, as if we don't have enough. This one about a 7-year-old transgendered young boy and the custody battle for him. I'm not going to say anybody's name on here. I haven't posted because a lot of what was being said didn't make sense. A lot of the reports were obviously incomplete. A lot of the reporting was clearly biased. So I thought I'd wait a little bit and talk about it. And first, I want to say I'm not mentioning any names. I don't think you should search this. I hope it stays out of the media after today, because this little boy doesn't deserve this. Honestly, whether they brought it on themselves or not, I don't think the parents even deserve this type of attention. There's just no reason for people's personal lives to be splattered all over the headlines. So I'm not going to mention any names. I'm just going to try to keep it to the legal aspects. So to start that, I think it's important to talk about what I'm not going to talk about, which is the politics of it all. Obviously, that's what this is about. This is about politics. I'm going to try to redirect that to legal, to what happened legally. And I hope you'll stay with me. And I hope you won't. You probably don't know how I feel about this case just by what I'm about to say. Nothing I'm saying has anything to do with the politics or the morality or anything to that nature. It's just trying to give you an idea of what might have gone on in the courts. I wasn't there, and I'm just going off basic reports. I'm close to it. I've been in that judge's court. I've practiced in front of her. I know the lawyers involved. It's not a giant group, a giant community, because I have done family law, and I have done similar cases. So let's start with the number one thing I want to get across. Okay? The number one thing I want to get across is nobody's castrating a 7-year-old. All right? Chemically or otherwise. According to all reports, as of right now, even as of this trial, there is no direct talk of this child being chemically castrated or going through medical transition from male to female. Dad obviously wanted to treat this child like a boy, and mom wanted to treat this child like a girl, and they had arguments over whether it was the child's choice or the parent's choice. So I'm going to start with one of the only political things I'm going to say, which is I believe in freedom. I honestly, unless it constitutes abuse, and there's a standard for abuse that we've set, as long as you don't cross that, and it's a ridiculously high standard. Is divorce itself abuse? No, I don't think it constitutes what we call abuse, but it's obviously not the best thing for the child if you look at the statistics. Is fatherless homes abuse? No, but it's obviously not the best. Is going to a bad public school abuse? No, it's just not the best thing. So my whole point is abuse is a very high standard for the law, and if you're not crossing that, I believe that you should do the best thing for your child. You should, but that you should have the freedom. That you do have the freedom in this country. I'm thankful to do pretty much whatever you want. Other than that, we all get these little experiments that we call children, and none of us know what we're doing. Basically, we just know we love these young humans, and we want the best for them, and we want them to grow up better than we did. And I think that's pretty much everybody, with few exceptions, and I don't think these parents are the exception. But we got a lot of parents who don't even know their own psychology and don't know how to do it, and are misguided and just do it wrong, or are selfish. I mean, there's a million things. And so, but one thing I know is we can't let the government make those decisions for anybody. I don't want the government making that decision for me. I want to be able to make my own wrong decisions for my children. And I certainly don't think the government is in a better place to decide what to do with my children. So I want them to stay out of it. And that's going to be important later. Make a note of that. So next, once you don't want the government, what do? Well, honestly, you stay married and you co-parent your children that way. And the government almost always never comes involved unless something weird or tragic happens. But that's not half of all relationships, right? Half of all relationships end in divorce. So if you can't, so then the next step is to co-parent after divorce. Obviously, that's not always possible. Sometimes one parent is crazy, sometimes both parents are crazy, or sometimes both parents just aren't, when they break up, in the place to co-parent. So now you have to bring in the government, and the way we do that is through the family court system, which is what we're talking about here. This family went to the family court system. They couldn't decide, so they left it in the hands of strangers. Now, usually, in almost every state, that's a judge. Now, that judge is an elected official. I call that the government, whether you call it or not. But here's the crazy thing that makes me even crazier when people talk about this case. Here in Texas, we can go to the citizens. We have the right to a jury trial. This is the only state. Unless something changed recently, the last time I looked it up, this was the only state that allowed for a jury trial for custody matters. Okay? So we can even keep the government out here in Texas. And that's what the dad tried to do by picking a jury. In this case, he asked a jury to decide his half. The mom said, I want a judge to decide my half. And so they couldn't agree. Mediation is forced in these cases. Still couldn't agree. There was many hearings. There was experts on both sides. It was almost a week-long family law trial, which is unheard of. That's like a murder trial. I've had terminations where the parents didn't want to be terminated, and the state was terminating the children, and there was 5 parties involved and 5 different lawyers, and it didn't take a week. This was one of the longest family cases that you will run into. They weren't talking about divorce. They weren't talking about anything else. They were just talking about custody, and it lasted a week. So, do juries get it wrong? Absolutely, they get it wrong. But you have to think that the jury is the best people to decide this case. And in this case, they said no to dad wanting sole managing conservatorship. Now, if chemical castration was on the table, how crazy would dad have to be in order for the jury to not give him sole managing conservatorship if mom wanted to chemically castrate the kid? Obviously, she probably didn't say she wanted to chemically castrate the kid, but it was talked about, I do believe. I'm not going to use chemical castration. I'm going to use medical transition. So medically transition this kid from a boy to a girl. It was on the table. And yet the jury still didn't give dad sole managing conservatorship. Okay? So you got to think about what kind of character dad was. What came out during this hearing. I've heard a lot of really bad stuff, but I could have assumed that just from the jury's verdict. So dad says jury decide, and the jury says you ain't getting custody, dad. But mom wanted the judge to decide. So again, here's the good news. The judge, which is leaving it to one person, said joint managing conservatorship. She denied mom's relief and essentially said you are going to co-parent this kid together, make medical decisions, including transition together, and if you can't, you got to come back here. Okay? So mom can't do anything without dad's say-so or going to the court for permission. Now, here's where I have a problem. The jury is the foundation of one of the greatest legal systems there is. And do they get it wrong? Yes. But if you think a jury of 11 out of 12 people is who decided this, is in a worse position than the government, and in this case, it's not a judge I'm talking about, it's the governor and the attorney general. And they're asking for the government to intervene in what the jury decided. I want you to think about that. Now, I know whether you agree with that, if that is okay, only corresponds to, for most of you, to whether you agree with what the government wanted. But you can't do that. If you say it's okay for the government to intervene, when a jury says mom gets to decide whether to transition this kid or not, then when the jury in another state, maybe you move to, or a jury in another reality where Texas is a Democrat, or a jury in 20 years when perhaps Texas is a Democrat state, decides that mom is right, or that dad is right, and their kid shouldn't be transitioned, and gives dad sole managing conservatorship, do you think that a Democrat Democrat governor should be able to turn around and nullify that and say, no, this kid wants to be transitioned. That's what I believe as the governor. So we're going to investigate or whatever. Now I'll tell you, legally, he has no standing. Don't worry about that. All he's going to open up is a CPS case. He's going to waste more CPS time because CPS can't do anything, isn't going to do anything. The governor has no power over judges. It's the opposite. There could be a judicial review over CPS stuff, not the other way around. And that's how it should be. But this upsets me because we had half of the public who are usually the protectors, who hold themselves out as the guardians of the citizenry against big government. But because of this one ideological belief, they were asking for the government to step in and overrule both a citizen jury and a judge, an elected judge. That makes me sadder than anything. And it makes me sadder because they're not going to believe it when the other half of the citizenry do the opposite and the opposite thing. When some governor somewhere wants a kid to be transitioned because mom says the kid wants to be transitioned, and they step in. We can't do this, people. We have this jury system. They decided. In this case, we had a backup, the judge, and the judge decided. And they decided based on all the evidence, a week worth of evidence. And we think off of some reports, some newspaper articles, some crazy biased things talking about chemical castration of a 7-year-old, that we should ask the government to step in. This is how you give up your freedoms. I believe in the jury system. Does it get it wrong? Yes. But I will bet on 11 out of 12 or 10 out of 12 is what you have to have, or 12 out of 12 people in a jury before I'll bet on any elected official, including that judge, especially a governor or an attorney general. I don't care whether Democrat, Republican, Independent. I don't care. Why are we trusting them with the people? So I said I wouldn't get political, and that's pretty political, but it's not on either side. What I'm saying is the foundation of our justice system that we should rely on, that we can't toss out jury decisions because we don't like them. We either have to figure out what's wrong with the jury system and change it for the better, or if we agree that the jury system is the best system to curtail government involvement, then we can't scream for that government involvement once we don't like this jury's decision. Of course we don't. That's the point. I'm not going to like the jury decision half the time, and you're not going to like the jury decision half the time if we're on opposite ends. If we're on the same, it's going to be the same. But it's not. That's the point. We have different value systems. We have different ideologies than other people. And that jury system, we are able to pick them and deselect them and get out the ones with bias. And we're left with citizens just like us. We could be on the jury system. And we promise to be fair. And we know we'll be fair. And we bring our own past experiences. And as a group of 12 people, or 10 out of 12 people in this case, we get to decide it. So we have to stop this. We have to start trusting the jury system. And even sometimes I don't. But even when I don't trust them, I respect what they come up with in the end, as long as they heard all the evidence, and as long as both sides had the ability to deselect people that they thought were going to be biased. So there's my rant. Sorry it took so long. I appreciate y'all listening to me for 16 minutes. I hope I explained a little bit about it. If you have any more questions, put them down in the comments. I try really hard to answer the questions that are legible and I can maybe even ferret out some sort of idea what you're saying. Not all of the comments are like that. I don't know if you've been to YouTube comments, they get a little crazy, but I appreciate everyone who comments. Like, subscribe, whatever. So thank you, everyone. And, spread the word. If you like what I have to say as far as this stuff, I'll keep bringing up legal stuff that I think I can help clarify for people who aren't in it. And so have a good evening. Peace and love to everybody, guys. See you later.